All right, ladies and gentlemen, today what we are going to do is practice the watercolor technique that we're going to use to color our cards. Now we're going to take the inspiration from the fashion drawings that we've kind of been looking at. The way fashion designers, when they are designing clothing, color their watercolors, they leave some of the areas white so that it looks like there is light coming on someone. So if you kind of look at this guy, there's light coming from this direction. So this area here is left the white of the paper. So they are carefully leaving some areas of the paper white so that it looks like there's like sun or light hitting their people. And that's what we are going to do on our playing cards. In order to practice this, you have a worksheet in front of you that looks like this. It's got 2 guys and 2 girls, so you can practice 4 different times. So you are going to get your water cup, make sure it's not filled more than halfway. You're going to get a brush, and you're going to get a 16 color set of watercolors because the areas we're going to be coloring in are going to kind of be small. If your watercolors are very dry, the first thing you need to do is put a little bit of water in and mix it in until you can see the paint starts coming up. If you just trying to paint right away, you're not going to get a very dark color because you kind of got to mix in the watercolor to make it paint instead of just dry. So then if I choose, I'm going to draw an arrow going this way, so I know that's the way I want the light to come from. So if the light's coming from this way, it's going to be very dark. See, I'm just using the tip of the brush, and I'm kind of like I'm drawing. Now I'm kind of trying to go around any lined areas, and I'm kind of coloring in. So I'm keeping the edge away from the light as dark as possible. And then I'm kind of using lines with the brush to get it. Now if I want this pocket to stand out, maybe I'll make that whole edge there dark. So see how there's still some white spots right next to it? And then over here, maybe right along that line. Now if I want it to be a little lighter, I'm going to clean my brush and pick up just a little bit of paint and a little bit of water. And see, that makes it a little lighter. So you're going to work that across, try to keep inside the lines. Now if I want that to be a little darker, maybe I want the edge. Now see, oops, I made a mistake. If you try to put more water where you already have the paper wet, it's going to do this thing called bleeding. It's going to bleed across any space where you've already wet water. So you kind of want to work dry as much as possible. So then I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to start, where is it dark? It would probably be dark next to the arm. Maybe I want to make that thing there dark so it stands out a little bit. I want to make her pocket a little darker so it stands out a little bit. Maybe there's a shadow kind of falling on either side of that. So I'm making it lighter and darker, kind of drawing with the paint. Making it lighter and darker based on how much I'm putting on there. Maybe I take just a little bit more right there. Now, if I decide that I want to do something like a pattern on top, or like if I try to do this belt right now. So if I do this belt and I paint it right now, see how it starts to bleed into those wet areas next to it? So what you may want to do, especially in your final, and you can kind of practice on these, is let that area dry a little bit and come back to it. So before I paint like her face, I might want to let this dry a little bit so it doesn't end up bleeding into her dress. So you can kind of work on all 4 at once, moving around so that you're not painting wet areas next to wet areas. You want to keep wet. You do not want to make things bleed unless, and on this one I'll show you a reason why you might want to make it bleed. Maybe I want this dress to be ombre. So it's still going to go dark because my light source is coming from over here. So it's still going to go dark here. But maybe I want the color of it to turn into yellow up here at the top. So it's still going to get dark up here. But now if I take the water, I can kind of make it bleed into each other. And this will work even better on watercolor paper than it will on this really thin paper that we're practicing on. So you can kind of make it bleed from one to the other, but see how I'm still leaving those little white spaces. Now, for skin tone, what I want you to do, and you can mix this, because I'm going to do her face. I'm going to mix this on the palette. You're going to take a little bit of red or pink, just a dot. You're going to take a little bit of orange. You're going to mix them together. Then you're going to take a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of brown. And then you're going to mix it in. Our skin tone is a pinky orangey brown. Once you've got that, you can take that and bring it over here. Now maybe I didn't put quite enough there. I put too much water. So a little bit of pink, a little bit of orange, a little bit of brown. Dry off my brush, mix them together. Now let's try her legs over here. See if that comes out better. Yeah, that's coming out better. So see, you got to kind of play around with it and practice it. If you want your person to not be Caucasian, you want them to be a little darker skin, you can add more brown. We'll get their skin tone a little darker. But it's still a pinky brown. Yeah, that maybe not even brown enough. See, there we go. Because we are all pinky brown. And see now, since I waited over here till this was dry to paint this, see how it didn't bleed? And see how it did bleed over here where it's still a little bit wet. So you want to wait until things are completely dry. So, keep those lines, keep those lighter spaces and darker spaces, and kind of practice. If you mess any of these up, it's okay. It will be a grade, but it's more of a practice grade. You want to make sure you get, by the time you get to the end of this worksheet, you've gotten really good at this so that you are ready to start painting your final.